Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rachakudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I have a couple of headlines in here that I wanted to get into. A couple of them are pretty interesting, but starting off with the update here on the U.S. and Iran war, which is back on now. So it says here, this is from zerohedge.com. Third round of U.S. strikes hits 140 targets after Hormuz ship attack. Iran retaliates on Kuwait, Jordan bases. Now, what's interesting, which I suspect, but this is just me, is if this continues to go on, back and forth, and eventually they do decide to launch a ground invasion, I wouldn't be surprised if it's closer to the end of the year, because in order to send in ground troops, you need people. And it is in December of this year, I believe, that the new update to the draft system where people can be automatically enlisted, and also they increase the range of the age range of people who can be enlisted in the draft takes effect. So, it wouldn't be surprising. It would actually be pretty interesting, if indeed they do go that route. But I mean, we have to watch and see how it goes. But you can see that regardless of how things cool down, as it says in Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, which I just quoted, right? But it mentions, the prophecies, right? Though it tarry, wait for it. Habakkuk 2:3, for it shall come, it shall not tarry. So, even though you have periods of time where there's like, oh, look. I mean, how so-called close did they get? They say, oh, it was super close. We got a deal. They've met. They've agreed. They've laid out their 10 or 14 point plan, and both sides are like all good with it. And then something happens, and here we are again, right? So it also shows all the more, as it's written in Proverbs, the 21st chapter, that the Lord is in control of all, right? The thoughts, the the intents, the imaginations of everybody, right? In particular, these rulers of these different nations and the ones that they receive their orders from. So it says here, third round of U.S. strikes. I read that Iran retaliates on Kuwait, Jordan bases. So let's read a little bit of this here. It says the escalation cycle intensified overnight into early Sunday as the U.S. conducted its third round of strikes this week. Also, a couple months back, they realized they were running out of artillery, right? And they needed time to restock and get back up. So with all the drama that was going on and on and on, a part of that was also to buy time, because as we've said, this isn't an agenda that they just got up one day and decided to do. They've been planning this for decades. They need to topple Iran in their minds. They need to get Iran out the way. That's why they won't stop until they're able to do so. But the problem is you won't, because the Lord has baked into prophecy the guardian of Iran, which is going to be Russia. So you can't get to accomplish, whatever plan it is you're trying to. You can start it and get there because the Lord is going to allow that. But the way that they think is going to go, it's not. It's going to escalate, and they may have reservations like, okay, if it goes this far, we're ready to handle that. But you're not really ready for that. In Isaiah, the 47th chapter, it mentions that evil shall rise, and thou shalt not know from whence it riseth. It says, while Iran enforced its declared closure of the Strait of Hormuz and launched retaliatory attacks across multiple Gulf states, now they're saying they're also using newer or like different, more devastating weaponry now, right? CENTCOM confirmed strikes began around 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday night, hitting approximately 140 Iranian military targets. These focused on degrading IRGC capabilities to threaten commercial shipping, including radars, missile, drone sites, launch systems, and more of that stuff on there. See what else they have on here. Yep. It says the immediate trigger was the IRGC attack on the Cyprus flag container ship in the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran obviously, of course, responded in declaring the Strait of Hormuz closed until further notice. It says, and until the end of American interventions, Tehran framed its actions as defensive and retaliatory, launching ballistic missiles and drones at U.S.-linked targets in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Jordan, and Oman. Now, right now it may seem contained, but it can just as quickly and easily grow and spiral into a more dangerous side of things, because right now it's like, oh, whenever it turns back up, Iran just attacks the Gulf states, and then they're paying for it, right? But people that are far away from that, they're just like, oh, okay, they're attacking the Gulf states. It will affect you some way somehow, but at least you're not getting hit with missiles, right? Not yet. But when it expands and it becomes a global war, a world war, you then have nations that are more than capable of striking places where you do dwell. And then at that point, it ain't gonna be so much you can just be ignorant of the fact. So this is another one here that I found interesting, and it reads here, it says planets, right? The planet's strongest heat dome to bake America's heartland, which, I mean, that in itself is an omen, because it's like a inadvertent foreshadowing of what will actually happen to Babylon the Great, aka America. What some meteorologists are calling the planet's strongest heat dome is set to build over America's heartland next week. Lord have mercy. Triple-digit temperatures are expected across the northern plains, with dangerous heat pushing eastward into parts of the mid-Atlantic. The planet's strongest heat dome will develop over the Intermountain West and plains into next week. According to meteorologist Ben Knoll, this will produce rare levels of heat, up to 110 degrees in Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, and the Dakotas. On Sunday, Billings, Montana could be hotter than Phoenix. So it's about to get real hot. Meteorologist Jeff, we'll call him Jeff, also sounded the alarm, saying, "Whopper of a heat dome coming," and that's no exaggeration. In all aspects, that's size, longevity, and especially intensity, this will be extreme. It's also in Revelation 16, right, that the men were scorched with heat. It says here, the heat dome should shatter all-time records for upper level pressure in the northern plain states. And it's interesting because, I mean, look how red that map is. But it's interesting because people still go about and don't realize that these are signs. The scriptures mention signs in the earth and in the heavens. So these are signs. Like there's that meme, like, they'll say something like, if I win the lottery, I won't say anything, but there will be signs. Well, the scriptures mention that the Lord, the latter part of the verse goes along the lines of, I think it's 2 Ezra 9, but he mentions ending in signs and effects. So these signs and effects are for us, at least those that are paying attention and have the Spirit of the Lord to interpret and realize the Lord is getting ready to visit the same world that he made. And people better pay attention. The last one I have on here, I really just pulled this up here more as should be an eye-opener for people. But what's going on over there, especially in like places like Germany and, those different areas, this is really becoming like a big issue. But this is a case of an Afghan asylum seeker, as it says here, walks free after sexually assaulting multiple young girls at German pool. Right. And they say that, he, when you read the article, it goes into how he in the pool try to, undress them and shit and all that. But they're basically like right now, I think they said a judge suspended the arrest warrant. So this guy is basically walking free while they wait for the outcome of the investigation. The thing about this, right, that I wanted to mention is right now, people, like, you see how people react to this, right? They're like, yo, like they're seeking the municipality or the authorities to take action against it. But keep in mind that this and far worse, it will become commonplace very soon. If this is how like life is already now, when society hasn't totally collapsed and crumbled yet, what do you think is going to happen when it does get there? And if your defense is to try and call on, judges and expecting the police, which clearly are not doing anything here, to do something about it, what are you going to do when there is, at least for that period of time, there is no system set in place for you to call for help? And now, like, this is the case here because clearly the intent is there, right? It's there because even in a society that is supposed to, prohibit these kinds of actions, it still goes on. So the intent is there. And if the intent is there and the actions are being done now, what do you think is going to happen when the intent is there and there's nothing, at least in the minds of the those who are trying to do this, to stop them? There's nothing to stop them. If society is still running and they're doing this, what do you think is going to happen when society collapses? And they know there ain't nobody coming to help you. See? So understand that it's going to be trouble on all sides. But this is going to start to become more commonplace because that is a side effect of chaos. That is it. You read historical documents, read different articles, watch different movies that are themed around some societal collapse, and you will see and hear about some degree of women being assaulted or women being assaulted. Because once again, it's a side effect of chaos, along obviously with different kinds of crime. But in that time, they're not really considered crimes in the minds of the people committing them because who's gonna stop them? Like who's enforcing the laws that if they break it, they're gonna face consequences? Nobody. So, we're in those times, and for those that want to continue to live on in ignorance and think, oh, it's happening somewhere else, it doesn't affect me. The time is coming very soon where you will seek and beg and cry and look for that protection, and you won't find it. And you won't have a happy ending. So you best get right now and turn back to the Lord while you still can. Anyway, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rechak Wadash. Until next time, Shalom.